On a thirsty Thursday, it's Sports Map All Night. What is going on? I'm Bill Schmidt alongside Andrew Carlson. You can call the show 1-800-224-2004. Thursday night football underway in the Queen City, and it is pouring for the Panthers and Falcons, who went into the break at a 16-14 game in favor of the boys from ATL. We'll talk to Tom Barton from Sports Garden, where you hear his Wannabet Weekend Edition each and every Sunday here on Sports Map Radio. He joins us right after this gun. This one goes final in Charlotte. Bruce Levine from 670 The Score in Chicago comes up within an hour, about 35 minutes away. I'm going to have a conversation with Bruce, one of the longtime, most respected baseball guys in the country, covers both the Chicago White Sox and the Chicago Cubs for 670 The Score in Chicago. Tony La Russa is back in a big league dugout, and I've got a lot of ideas and thoughts and questions for why Tony La Russa is the decision there in Chicago. And White Sox fans, I need your help. 1-800-224-2004, because there are parts of this that I like and parts of it that I'm so vehemently against that we're all going to work through it together. And there's also a game this weekend that probably decides the best team maybe in the AFC besides the Kansas City Chiefs. And that happens in the AFC North, which is going to be actually a historic matchup between the Ravens and Steelers. Fill you in on the second hour of the program, as well as more news coming down in the world of college football. We're going to talk with Ben Wargel of Badger Nation in Madison, Wisconsin, about the Wisconsin Badgers positive tests. Their game this weekend has been canceled with the University of Nebraska. But within the last 2 hours, reports coming out from Mike Garafolo and Ian Rappaport of the NFL Network that Trevor Lawrence, the starting quarterback and Heisman frontrunner, University of Clemson, has contracted COVID-19 and is COVID-19 positive. Where does college football continue to move? And how dangerous are these positive tests to the outcome and ultimately conclusion of the college football season? We'll get into that along the way. But start it up. Tony La Russa, really? Sports Map Radio.
Tired of paying just prices for
when you manage 5,000 games, you always feel like you have a responsibility. Maybe there's something you or the coaching staff can do to help put the players in position to win a game. When you're upstairs, you can see the game, and you may have that idea, and you can't do anything. And not going to manage, and I'm not ready to leave the game. So you sit there and you take the picture.
Okay. Well, that was Tony La Russa back in February with Graham Benzinger on a show called In Depth with Graham Benzinger. I had a sit-down interview with Tony La Russa back in February where he said, I'm not going to manage, so I got to just take the punishment up there. Tony La Russa, back in 2011, left the dugout as, at the time, the first manager to retire from Major League Baseball after winning the World Series. He did that with the 2011 St. Louis Cardinals, and since then has been in the front offices of the Los Angeles Angels, the Arizona Diamondbacks, also the Boston Red Sox for a period of time. So Tony La Russa has stayed within the game, and now today is back in the dugout. He is announced as the newest manager of the Chicago White Sox within about a month ago from dismissing Ricky Renteria as the manager of the team after he took them to their first playoff appearance, and I want to say it was over a decade. I believe since they won the World Series back in 2006. Somebody can fact check me on that. But I'm pretty positive they had not been back to the playoffs since they had won the World Series. So being able to get back to that point of prominence and relevance in Chicago, in a baseball town that for the last decade and pretty much ever for a long time, longer than just a decade, has been dominated by the Chicago Cubs. I mean, the Chicago Cubs are the A block when it comes to news in Chicago about baseball. However, now today, the Chicago White Sox are the absolute talking point across sports broadcasting. Tony La Russa, 76 years old, brought in to now be the new manager of the Chicago White Sox. The White Sox were are a young, up-and-coming, rising crew with young Latin stars like Luis Robert, who is just going into his second year in the big leagues. Yoan Moncada, who was brought in the Chris Sale trade a few years ago from the Boston Red Sox, incredibly talented third baseman. Jose Abreu is kind of the linchpin in the entire operation, the big first baseman who they inked to an extension a year ago to be a power hitting first baseman. Probably could have factored into the AL MVP awards this season. And a pitching staff that features a guy like Lucas Giolito, who's in the conversation for Cy Youngs each and every year. They bring in Dallas Keuchel in the offseason. They have been open at this point to spending money in free agency, something that maybe the organization hadn't done in previous years. And also Tim Anderson is their superstar shortstop, who for the last 2 years was the batting champion in the American League. There's a lot of things that I don't love about the decision to bring in Tony La Russa as the manager. First and foremost is the person, Tony La Russa. When I heard the announcement today or read it via Twitter, immediately 4 years ago popped into my mind when Tony La Russa made some pretty open criticisms of Colin Kaepernick and the decision of how and why to protest the national anthem in the kneeling process, right? Okay, people will go back and forth and decisions will be made on that. Then earlier this year, in a completely different scenario, Tony La Russa discussed and was asked about his beliefs and how he liked or disliked the celebrations of Fernando Tatis and the decision by Fernando Tatis when he hit the grand slam this year against the team is blanking me, but the Padres up like 11-1. He hits a grand slam and celebrates. Tony La Russa openly criticized the decision and the play from Tatis and said, sportsmanship still has a place in this game. Tim Anderson, the superstar shortstop of the Chicago White Sox, was quoted after that as saying, the only thing Tatis did wrong was apologize for it. So like right there, I'm seeing a major disconnect between the newest manager, a guy that's supposed to come in and lead you to a World Series, because that's where the White Sox are trying to go. That's where they believe that they should be going, and that's what the statement was from the White Sox brass and Rick Hahn, who I'm going to get to in a minute, the general manager, when they fired Rick Renteria. They stated that they wanted to go and get somebody, and that the next manager of the team was going to be somebody that had postseason experience recently and was also going to be able to take the team further into the future, that had postseason experience so recently. Well, Tony La Russa's got crazy amounts of postseason experience. He's actually a Hall of Famer. He was enshrined in 2014. Got multiple world championships, 3 of them with the St. Louis Cardinals in his 16 years there. But as you continue to meander through all of the problems, there does come back to a couple of key points and reasons why maybe it makes a little bit more sense that Tony La Russa is brought in. The age thing is not the biggest question for me. A lot of reaction and a lot of people coming back after the announcement was made, that it just didn't make much sense to me. Why you would bring in a guy that would be so vastly different from the manager you just had previously. But then the age in which we live in and how we somewhat handle young professional athletes. As a young person in the workplace today, a lot of people give millennials and the generation below some grief for, not necessarily being hard workers, not being dedicated workers and dedicated employees. I think that's kind of an unfair criticism. And for me, it's mostly people that are entering the workforce today and generations that have just entered the workforce are learning more and more about the businesses they're in. The major question that I always remember and that I've always asked is why? Why are we doing things? Why is this how we, set up our clock in our business, right? Why is this how we're going to manage pitching decisions? Why are we utilizing this statistic when deciding right-handers against left-handed matchups? So on and so forth, right? You don't necessarily need to know or agree with the decision, but understanding how you get to that conclusion, right? The showing your work. I think that's a clear avenue for blending these two sides together. Tony La Russa, as the manager of the Chicago White Sox, does not have to be every player's best friend. We all know that. His job is not to throw his arm around Luis Robert and go out to dinner with him on the road, or to, be invited to Yoan Moncada's wedding and have a speech. That's not what he's hired to do. He's not hired to be a friend. He's hired to be the boss, hired to win a World Series. And going through the stages of Tony La Russa's time as a manager in the big leagues, really at no point in his career has La Russa been against utilizing the newest wave of information in sports, especially in baseball. He was one of the first guys back in the 80s when he was with the A's to start analyzing the numbers into pitching matchups and splits and analyzing how those decisions and numbers and metrics added into the success that you would have on the field. And then Tony La Russa goes into the front office for the last 9 years, works in 3 different organizations, kind of sees how those decisions are being made. And in the profession today, in baseball today, so many new managers are coming straight out of the front office, right? AJ Hinch, who apparently didn't even get a phone call for this job for the Chicago White Sox, worked in the front office. Dave Roberts had time in the front office. Right? Kevin Cash started as a special advisor in the front office. Craig Counsell in Milwaukee did the same thing. David Ross in the same city with the Chicago Cubs. After he retired after the 2016 World Series, went and was a special advisor or however you explain or however you decide to word the title. You learn how those decisions are made into the front office and then translates to the field, translates to the dugout, into the clubhouse. The decision with La Russa for me isn't the fact that he's 76 years old, right? Jim Leyland managed when he was into his 70s. Jack McKeon was 80 when he won a World Series. Age is really but a number. But philosophies they can be mended, and the way that you want to manage a game can somewhat change over time. In certain instances, it does. For many others, you stick to what you believe and what you've done for a long time, and it's either my way or the highway. I think La Russa is in a different vein than simply saying my way or the highway. He's been open to learning new ways to think in baseball. But the relatability to a player, to a team, to the organization, I just feel like at this point in time, the way the decision was made, the information we're getting from Jeff Passan saying different members of the organization ruffled a lot of feathers, how quickly it came down. People don't believe that La Russa is going to be able to mesh with the young core. That's the issues that I have. And not because he's going to, be too mean to the young players. No, it's just simply a fact of life. There's not many times that me at 26, my parents are in their 60s. There's not many Saturday nights you're going to be breaking down and enjoying the same types of lifestyles that you have to. And that's not what Tony La Russa has to do. But there does have to be a relatability to his players. There does have to be some common ground to the organization and to the guys into that locker room, in that lineup card. And the more and more I look at this decision, feels to me like Rick Hahn was, for lack of a better term, neutered in front of the rest of the baseball world. If you believe that this was Rick Hahn's decision and not Jerry Reinsdorf's, the owner of the team, a guy that fired La Russa 30-something years ago, that's personal opinion. But in 1986, La Russa was fired by the White Sox by Reinsdorf in the middle of a season, and reportedly Reinsdorf has regretted it ever since. I'm going to ask Bruce Levine about that in 15 minutes when he stops by, if he thinks that some of this is an overcorrection to Reinsdorf in his beliefs of what La Russa can do. On the other side, Dave Dombrowski, general manager formerly of the Boston Red Sox, one of the only general managers I can remember that wins a World Series and then gets fired the next year, spoke about La Russa's want to get back into the dugout. And Tony La Russa tells you why the itch came back for him to get into the dugout. That's next, and Bruce Levine joins us in 15 minutes. And your reaction as well at 1-800-224-2004. It's Bill Schmid, the program Sports Map All Night. You're listening to the Sports Map Radio Network.
surgery. And I think if he came back and that felt good and he was able to move around, it wouldn't surprise me if he took an opportunity for another year.
That's Dave Dombrowski, the former general manager of the Boston Red Sox, speaking about Tony La Russa. The Hall of Fame manager is now back, and he's going to manage the Chicago White Sox, one of the youngest teams in all of baseball. La Russa, three-time World Series champion, has gone to the World Series 6 times as a manager, and 4-time manager of the year with a record overall of 2,728 to just 2,365 losses, a career winning percentage of .536. And that is incredibly impressive in the game of baseball. But when you look at the entire scope of Tony La Russa and the time in which he's been in the league, and for the wins and the losses that he's had, despite the decision earlier today, there's just a lot of major questions I have. And when I see a team make a move like this, it dates back to immediate, personal experiences. And as a Brewers fan, I've watched Tony La Russa manage teams and just kick the Brewers all over the place. 2011, his team, I think, won like 83 games, one of the lowest win totals of a World Series champion. 90 games is what there was. 2006 was the 83 win team that won the World Series. But in 2011, his team was 10 games back going into September. And there's never been much of a question about players playing for Tony La Russa. Now, that was also 9-10 years ago. And there's never been really a time in which Tony has been against growing with the game, learning the nuances of the game and putting the newest information into action for his lineup. I don't disbelieve that Tony La Russa is going to do, all the sabermetric analytic department analysis of right-handed and left-handed splits and all that fancy stuff that Kevin Cash and the Tampa Bay Rays are going to cover themselves with and how they took out Blake Snell. Every Major League Baseball team has an analytics department. All right. Every single organization in pro sports now is utilizing analytics. That discussion is long gone. Everybody is doing it. So how do you take that and all the numbers that everybody has and all the information that everybody has, and how do you put it to the best use for your team? Now, Tony's been out of the dugout for the last 9 years. And he spoke to guy named Graham Benzinger earlier on this year about the decisions and want to get back into managing. And in just 1 second, we're going to play a snippet of why Tony La Russa has the itch and maybe why Tony La Russa believes that he's going to be able to have success down in Chicago. But first, we're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. The show is Sports Map all night. I'm Bill Schmidt. Andrew Carlson is in here as well. Guys, don't let a bad battery leave you stranded. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery free of charge if it needs to be replaced. O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact right battery for your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. Keep your car on the road by getting your battery tested for free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better prices every day. This is Tony La Russa telling Graham Benzinger on In Depth why and how he still has an itch to be a manager, and how he believes his experience in the front office will help him in the dugout in his next opportunity, which now is coming with the Chicago White Sox.
There's an overemphasis. We survived and thrived for years. We had a very proactive coaching staff, great coaches that really embraced information. We believe in its place. And what's happened is the game is being overwhelmed by percentages and numbers. And the value of the coaches, scouts, and observational analytics. You watch and you see it's being disrespected. So the game is really not as entertaining right now. Percentages don't take into account the head, the heart, and the guts of a player that day. So there are times you say, man, I'd like to get back and help correct the balance. That's sometimes after you watch against man, I'd like to get back because I know they're playing the game correctly. You'll win more than what they're doing now.
Tony La Russa earlier today at his introductory press conference says, I realized I had to either stop complaining about being upstairs or go downstairs. La Russa continued, and if you go downstairs and have an opportunity like you have with the White Sox, that's when it got serious. La Russa, at this moment, is 76 years old. We're going to be the oldest manager in the game. But despite that, and that narrative will be brought up across the country, and it'll be mentioned every single game the White Sox play this year. Again, it's not the age thing that I'm hung up on with the La Russa move. For me, the most frustrating angle and part of this hire is that if you're going to empower a general manager to make all the right trades, trade away a Cy Young Award winner in Chris Sale, right? Move on from Jose Quintana, trade away multiple assets, Adam Eaton, and bring back and build, right, a beautiful team with a great young core, signed to a lot of team-friendly contracts, which have a lot of cash certainty for the next 7, 8, 9 years. And then your owner hires one of his old friends to be the manager. That was the guy over 30 years ago. Just feels like this move was made over the top of Rick Hahn's head, and that's the part of it I don't like, and that's what I have to ask Bruce Levine next. From 670 The Score, one of the best baseball writers in the country joins Sports Map Radio next. Carlson is in here as well. This hour of the program is presented by Rocket Mortgage. When you need an expert to help navigate the home loan process, Rocket can. 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number you can call to join us here on Sports Map Radio and Sports Map all night. 8:20 to play on Thursday Night Football as the Carolina Panthers just punted it back to the Falcons, trailing 25-17. Teddy Two Gloves is back into the game. Andrew, they had some very, very questionable pokes at Teddy Bridgewater there on the previous series before he came out. Your boy, PJ Walker, right? A Cougar, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Not a Cougar, but he is
okay.
Houston Roughneck.
Houston Roughneck. I knew he had the Houston tie, but he came in for like 7 plays, and then Teddy Two Gloves comes in, and they have to punt it back. But there were some questionable pokes by the Atlanta Falcons there.
Yeah, the one that sent him out was really, really bad. They tripped him as he was running. A defensive lineman tripped him as he was running past, and then he sort of got speared in the head as he was already down on the ground by another defensive player. I think it was a linebacker. It was just a really ugly play all around by the Falcons.
And the Falcons right now up 8 with the ball coming back to them. Matt Ryan has not looked great, but fantasy-wise, looks good for you. Got a little rushing touchdown in there as well. Todd Gurley just punched one in as well. The game of the weekend might decide the team to beat in the AFC North. We'll preview it next right here on Sports Map all night. All Night is coming at you. I'm Bill Schmidt. Andrew Carlson is in here as well. The Carolina Panthers look to be getting off the field, but their star pass rusher, Brian Burns, now currently down on the field after it looked like he just came up with a sack of Matt Ryan in this game. It has been a difficult game to predict the next the next wave, right? It's been a very back and forth battle. However, Curtis Samuel, one of the stars of this one tonight for the Carolina Panthers, Christian McCaffrey not playing. Teddy Bridgewater left the game momentarily with an injury, has been checked back in to the game. So once Carolina gets the ball back, they appear to have just stopped him and sacked Matt Ryan on a 3rd and 3. But now a defensive holding call looks to be giving the Atlanta Falcons a fresh set of downs, and it will. Inside of 5 to go, Carolina a 1.5-point favorite at home when the line closed up earlier on today. Todd Gurley's got himself a touchdown, and Matt Ryan's got himself a rushing touchdown. 4 carries for 29 yards for Matty Ice. So there you go. Good for him. And after the game, we'll talk to Tom Barton. He's the host of Sports Gardens Wannabet Weekend Edition right here on Sports Map Radio. There is a difficult decision that a lot of organizations have been posed with throughout this season in the National Football League. And I want to get into the conversation a little bit later on this hour, in about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes from right now. How do you judge a head coach? Wins and losses being the main stat, right? But in a pandemic season, there's a lot of teams in the National Football League as well as in the college game. And for universities, I think it's going to be a different scenario because of how their budgets are going to be set up and the money that they maybe can or cannot eat in a head coach's salary. But for an NFL team, firing a head coach during the pandemic 2020 season, believe it's right or unfair? We'll get into that in about 10 minutes from right now. But the best team in the AFC North might be decided this weekend. Preview Steelers and Ravens next. Keep it right here at Sports Map All Night.
Park Studios. Here's Bill Schmidt.
There's this theory kicking around that, Baker might be better off without Odell. Why is that a flawed argument?
One, I think it's just completely insensitive to a guy that just tore his ACL. So I'm not even going to comment on it. You never want to lose guys, and that's where I'm going to leave that one.
Good for you, Baker Mayfield. That's the exact way I would answer that question. That was Baker Mayfield earlier on this week as they get ready, the Cleveland Browns do, to follow up a W in which Baker Mayfield was the AFC Offensive Player of the Week. Whoo, Browns fans have been waiting to say that. And Browns fans deserve to flex a little bit. Hey, your team's 5-2, and most likely at this point in time, at this particular point in time, now do not rush and send hate mail. If you do, address it to Andrew Carlson at Sports Map Radio, and then he will forward it off to me, and I absolutely will read it. But 5-2 right now, they're the 5th or 6th seed in the AFC, but they're in 3rd place in the AFC North, which there's been a lot of talk, and rightfully so, that the NFC West is clearly the best division in football. It's absolutely the best division in the NFC. The AFC side, I think it leans right there into the middle of the AFC North, with even the bottom-feeding Cincinnati Bengals giving just about all these teams in the division a little bit of fits. Now, Baltimore pounded Cincinnati before their bye week, 27-3, I want to say. And that was when Wink Martindale, their defensive coordinator, came out and just ripped Zach Taylor for kicking a field goal with about 35 seconds left to make sure that his team didn't get shut out. I stand by that decision. Do absolutely anything you can to score points. I don't care if you are down 40-0, 50-0. I've done it when I'm down 60-0 in Madden, and I'm not proud to say that I've been down 60-0 in Madden. But I am not going to get shut out, and you're not going to shut me out and have that justification and that good feeling, those good vibes, babe. I'm just not going to let you do that. So you look at the AFC North, and from what Baker Mayfield just said right there, the Browns are going to have a little bit more of an uphill climb here without Odell Beckham Jr. He is lost for the season with a torn ACL. The rest of the division at the top has the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are the lone unbeaten team in all of football remaining, following week 7, in which they beat 27-24 the Tennessee Titans, who are also previously unbeaten. And then the Seattle Seahawks lose their unbeaten streak against the Arizona Cardinals this last week in prime time. The Steelers may have their 6-0 record and undefeated season snapped this week when they get to face off against Lamar Jackson, the reigning defending MVP, the Baltimore Ravens, coming up in the noon window in Baltimore this weekend. And deciding which team truly will be the best team in the division, I kind of think the wrong team is favored here. And Andrew, you've been listening to me for the last 6, 7, 8 weeks of the NFL season, not buying the Pittsburgh Steelers really at all at this point. Consensus-wise, the Ravens right now are the 4-point home favorite. And analyzing the number, it sits, that Baltimore is maybe a point better than Pittsburgh. Throughout the season and throughout the offseason, to me, the Ravens have been the clear-cut number 2 in that AFC. And maybe it just lends itself to this belief because, Andrew, we haven't seen the Ravens coming off their bye week, and we are very much a what have you done for me business. A what have you done for me lately league is what this NFL is. That since I haven't gotten to see the Ravens in a week and a half, 2 weeks, maybe I'm just forgetting how good they are, but it's still stuck into my mind. They've allowed teams back into some games as Baltimore. And Pittsburgh, no different from a week ago, up 20 on Tennessee. But I'm trying to figure out if Baltimore truly should be the favorite in this game. And if indeed it ends up coming on our 3 plays that pay coming up tomorrow night as we get ready for week 8. I'm just chewing on it, believing in no Mark Ingram, right? Baltimore just brought in Des Bryant because they clearly have a want/need at the wide receiver position. And offensively, call me crazy, and I know what Lamar Jackson can do outside of the pocket, and he's as dynamic of an athlete as I've ever seen. But right now, I think maybe the more explosive offense, at least in the pass game, might be sitting there in Pittsburgh. Claypool, grab Washington in there, Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson. Eric Ebron has been a really, really nice surprise and a great pickup there in Pittsburgh. It's not as much to me a slam dunk that Baltimore runs away with this division. And if Pittsburgh comes out on the road, this will be the 25th time Tomlin and John Harbaugh go back and go head-to-head in this rivalry. To me, it signifies Pittsburgh beats Baltimore. They will have the respect of not only me, but they will have absolutely every single member of the media in the covering the National Football League's respect as one of the 3-4 best teams in the NFL. Is it weird to think that a team that's undefeated has another prove-it game here before week 8 in the National Football League? Like before the midway point, last week they had to prove it against Tennessee. Now this week they're going to me, have to prove it against Baltimore, who for the majority of this season, I believed was lockstep with Kansas City as the best team in the AFC. You go into another team's house, an organization that you've battled for so many years, and this rivalry is by far one of my absolute favorites. But to face off 25 times, John Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin will become the first pair of head coaches to ever do that in the Super Bowl era. Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens. The consistency of these two organizations, it's mind-boggling to me. Harbaugh 13-11 all time against Mike Tomlin head-to-head in the regular season as their first meeting happened back in 2008. And we've seen this matchup in the playoffs a couple of times. We've seen it decide the AFC North countless different times. And this weekend's no different to me. You're looking at two guys in Harbaugh and Tomlin, though, also, who Tomlin a little bit less, I think, than John, have had to recalibrate their organizational directions a few different times, especially within the last couple of years. I mean, you look at how Pittsburgh's done business for a while now. Last year was the first real turmoil and real questions, I think, that have arisen on the job security of one Mike Tomlin, which is somewhat ridiculous to me. The guy has taken them and won how many different division championships, and you have one season of 8-8. Jerry Dulac and us were talking about it last week. Covers the Pittsburgh Steelers and hosts on the Pittsburgh Steelers radio network. That I understand it's all about, getting titles and getting championships and being in a better position now than you were 4 or 5 years ago. But the Steelers and the Ravens kind of rebuilt in front of our eyes without ever really tanking down. What's the lowest either of these organizations have drafted within the last decade and a half? Baltimore grabbed a transcendent talent at the quarterback position at 30, 32 when they drafted Lamar Jackson, one of the last picks in the first round. They're such class organizations. They've been so successful within the last 2 decades and, further on with that when you see Ravens and Steelers, almost always imagine that it's a big game. But now this year with them having some real company atop the AFC North, Pittsburgh wins this thing. It's an absolute message, I think, to the rest of the National Football League. And for Baltimore, though, they go out here and beat Pittsburgh. I don't think it's as much of a statement win for the Ravens because, we all have just believed that they would be at this point and be one of the best teams in the AFC and in the NFL. Almost numb to the fact that they are continuing to dominate through and somewhat blow some teams out. But they haven't had that killer instinct as much as I would like to see out of the Ravens. And I'm hoping to see it a little bit more coming up this weekend. 4-point favorites are the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers this weekend in the noon slate. Pretty much everybody will get that game, I believe, on CBS this weekend as well, because the national game coming up, I believe, with Buck and Aikman will be San Francisco and Seattle. Some really, really good games to dive into. And we'll get into a lot more of them tomorrow as we get more and more into week number 8 in the NFL. It's coming down to the last minute in Carolina, 104 to be exact. Panthers with the ball, a 3rd and 6 inside Atlanta territory. And before we take a quick timeout, 97% chance of winning the game the Atlanta Falcons had just a couple of moments ago. They lead the league in amount of games that they have blown a lead, in which they had a 98% chance of winning the game, or win probability. I don't know if the win probability stat should even account for the Atlanta Falcons anymore. Like, whatever the win probability is for every other team, just cut it at like 50-50 to the Falcons. Flag down. It looks like the Falcons, though, have indeed clinched this one in the Queen City. 25-17 the score right now. We'll update you and give you the final when we return, as well as coaches in a COVID NFL season. Can you make a legitimate decision on the hiring and firing of a head coach in the COVID-19 campaign of 2020? That before Tom Barton of Sports Gardens Wannabet Weekend Edition joins us after this one concludes on Thursday Night Football. You're listening to Sports Map all night on the all-new Sports Map Radio Network. Not the best night for one Teddy Bridgewater. Not a great night for Matt Rule and the Carolina Panthers. They dropped to 3-5. But hey, congratulations are in order. We're all about success stories here on this program on Sports Map All Night. That's the kind of stuff we enjoy. And congratulations to Raheem Morris. That was definitely due. His first win as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, as he was named the interim head coach after Dan Quinn was dismissed this year in the middle of the season after 5 games there in Atlanta. Tom Barton from Sports Garden is going to join us coming up in about 10 minutes from right now. Discuss this game as well as preview the games ahead this weekend. Give you just some investment opportunities as we do each and every Friday on this program when we drop down the 3 plays that pay during the third hour of the program. But Andrew, I wanted to touch on this before we get into Tom. And Aaron Rodgers spoke earlier on today about the job security of Mike Zimmer. Now, Mike Zimmer with the Minnesota Vikings has been a pretty successful head coach. I mean, like, if there's as easy of an analysis as it can be, he's 1-5 at this point this season, right? Those numbers are not great. But as a head coach in Minnesota, it's been a pretty successful run for Mike Zimmer. He took over in January of 2014. They've won a pair of division titles. They have made an NFC championship game as well. They were a disastrous kick away off the foot of one Blair Walsh in 2015 in his first year as the head coach, or his second year as the head coach, following up a 7-9 season. Away from advancing to the second round in the NFL playoffs, they've snapped a couple of different streaks that Green Bay had of winning division title after division title after division title. Countless winning seasons for Mike Zimmer. And this all is after the fact that he's been one of the more highly regarded defensive minds and defensive coordinators in pro football for a number of years. Was a defensive coordinator in Dallas from 2000 to 2006. Spent a year being the defensive coordinator with the Atlanta Falcons, 5 more years being the defensive coordinator of the Cincinnati Bengals, and then went and took over the head job in Minnesota. His head coaching record is 60-46-1. And reportedly, and now I'm not in the Twin Cities, so I don't know exactly how much and how loud these campaigns are, but some people are believing that Mike Zimmer deserves to be on the hot seat. And this was Aaron Rodgers reacting to that thought that some people believe the Minnesota Vikings would be better off without Mike Zimmer as their head coach.
I was telling a friend of mine, to see him mention being on the hot seat to me is absolutely crazy. I think he's one of the best coaches in the league and has been for a long time. They don't all give you the trouble and the scheme that Mike does. I have a lot of respect for the way he coaches and the way he especially coaches defense.
And when you look into not only the decision to let a coach go, in general, and Andrew, your team in the Houston Texans made the decision to relieve Bill O'Brien of his duties. That one I think is just a case in and of itself. That's its own separate entity, was the decision to move on from Bill O'Brien, because he had so clearly lost the football team and lost his absolute mind in being the general manager, and he deserved to be let go of the general manager, and there was no way you were just going to fire him as the GM and not the head coach, especially when he picks a fight with probably the most famous athlete, or maybe one of the most beloved athletes in Houston sports history, in J.J. Watt. Am I off base by saying that?
Lost his mind might be a little kind to him, if we're being completely honest.
That's true. You're not going to pull any punches when it comes to Bill O'Brien. But like the Dan Quinn then decision tonight, and it fits in well with Raheem Morris getting his first win. Dan Quinn was possibly going to get fired like multiple years before this. When I look at the 2020 football season, and by no stretch of the imagination is this meant to sound like people get free passes in 2020 because the year is stunk, right? But in terms of hiring and firing a football coach, relieving a football coach of his job at the helm of your organization, in a season in which you have no preseason, you have no OTAs, you had no mini camps, you had no offseason training with the teams, and to make a decision on hiring and firing a coach this season solely because of the performance really that you're getting from this season, I think it would be incredibly unfair. However, there will be coaches that get fired. Adam Gase. There will be coaches that maybe deserve to be on the hot seat and probably stick around again. But then there's also coaches that I think are going to get harshly axed this season in not necessarily an unfair manner. But if you're talking about a fair shake, there's some loaded die in the year of 2020. If you're trying to make the determination if a Mike Zimmer can continue to be the head man of your football team, not many times do you judge it on the last 5 years in comparison to just the one you watched, the season that you just consumed. But especially in the case of Mike Zimmer, I hope Ziggy Wolf and the rest of that Minnesota Vikings organization is smart enough to know you cannot relieve this man of his duties because the team is 1-5 in 2020. They started like 3 rookie cornerbacks. His quarterback is Kirk Cousins, which the general manager extended. Their all-pro pass rusher Danielle Hunter has missed the entire season and will miss the entire season after he just had neck surgery. Their offensive line can be somewhat of a revolving door week in and week out. Their all-pro running back, who they just signed to a 5-year, $68 million contract or whatever, has missed 2 to 3 games. There's just so much turnover in that season that, maybe in a regular NFL campaign where you start with free agency in March, NFL draft, rookie camp, mini camp for 3 weeks, OTAs for 8 weeks. You get the 3 to 4 weeks off in July before you come back for a training camp, 4 preseason games, build up to an after Labor Day kickoff, 17-week, 16-game season, away we go. Just feels like if you're going to make that determination that a guy no longer has his fastball to be the head coach, got to give him one more run than just the 2020 campaign. We're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts studios. The show is Sports Map All Night. I'm Bill Schmidt. Andrew Carlson is in here as well. O'Reilly Auto Parts, guys, if you need replacement parts and tools for your repair, maintenance, or restoration project, O'Reilly Auto Parts has you covered. Trust the friendly and knowledgeable parts professionals at O'Reilly Auto Parts. They know what it takes to get the job done right the first time. In fact, professional technicians have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for years. Stop by and talk to one of the professional parts people today at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices each and every day. Tom Barton joins us next on Sports Map All Night. Back to the program at Sports Map All Night. Bill Schmidt alongside Andrew Carlson inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. Thanks for hanging out with us. Choosing us to spend your night after Thursday night football. 25-17. Raheem Morris gets his first win as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. To talk about that one, as well as the weekend that we get to feast on upcoming in the National Football League, is Tom Barton from Sports Gardens Wannabet Weekend Edition. You hear it each and every Sunday right here on Sports Map Radio. He's at Tom Barton Sports on Twitter, and now he's on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Progressive, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Get your quote at progressive.com today. Tom, good hearing from you again. Raheem Morris gets his first win with the Atlanta Falcons, but they had a 97% win probability in this game. I think once the Atlanta Falcons get to about 90, it really means just 50-50 for about every other team.
They make it exciting, don't they?
That's for sure.
What the NFL wants. They just put Atlanta on every weekend, and you're going to have people on the edge of their seats for a 1-5 team.
There's the Atlanta Falcons could play every Thursday night. You know it's going to be entertaining. And the Seattle Seahawks, I think we should make a campaign that they might just need to play every Sunday night game, because those games are just so wild. Before we get into this weekend, what did you take from that absolute thriller this last Sunday night, Seattle and Arizona?
You know, it's weird. I didn't take much from it. I don't think you can take much from it. I think that they came in both as flawed teams, but very, very big upside for both of their teams. I was thinking that over the course of the bye week, Seattle would fix that defense, come back, and have a better showing. But the injuries kept coming up, So Jamal Adams still wasn't out there. I don't think they can fix anything until they get healthy. Now, they did go out there and make a trade. At Arizona, in the same vein, I looked at that game and I said, this is another intriguing team. They have some holes. So I expected a close game. That's exactly what we got. I don't know if we got any answers. Seattle should have won. Arizona should have won. Seattle should have won. Then Arizona should have won. I don't think we got any answers. To me, they are a very close team. Both of them very much have problem areas, but both of them have exciting quarterbacks and offenses and unguardable wide receivers that can just switch the game like that.
Flawed is a great way to put the Seattle Seahawks, because, Tom, their pass rush is absolutely atrocious. I mean, really, for weeks on end, it was invisible. Now they go and make the Carlos Dunlap trade. Maybe that adds a little something. They're going to need more than one guy who's in the twilight era of his career. But for that offense with Russell Wilson at quarterback, given 3 against San Francisco, who has played so much better these last couple of days, but you want to talk about injuries, the 49ers have that, especially in their running back room. First off, how bad can Seattle's defense be and them still be able to win a Super Bowl? And what about this weekend against San Francisco, a team that's just been running the rock down people's throats the last couple of weeks?
Well, I think you need to take the word Super Bowl right out of your dictionary when you talk about Seattle. Never before have we had a Super Bowl winner with a defense even close to this bad. I think the stat that I read was the worst defense ever finished 15th overall. And they are about 28, 29 or 30, depending on what metric you're using. So this is a historically bad defense. Now, can they turn it around? Sure. You mentioned the injuries for San Francisco. How about the injuries for Seattle? There's a chance that Chris Carson, Carlos Hyde, Travis Homer, all could be out for this game, where you're looking at DJ Dallas as the starter. I'm not a Lions Sports Bureau here, but I don't think we've ever seen a game where both teams could be starting their 4th or 5th string running back. San Francisco, you know what? I think Deebo Samuel is a much more problematic loss there, because, you know what? You could do short passes and work it, and you saw Samuel doing reverses and now if they have to go to a 4th string running back and they don't have the ability to use Samuel almost in that Cordell Patterson role, that's going to hurt them more. But I am impressed with what San Francisco is doing, and right now, I think you got to be nuts to put money on Seattle. Now, I'm not telling you to go on San Francisco. I think you got to be crazy, because Russell Wilson has to play at an MVP level that he's never even played before for them to win games.
Yep.
There's going to be some games where he just plays 95%, and those are games that they're going to lose.
Yeah, I mean, the dude throws for almost 4 bills last week and drops 3 touchdowns, and it's not enough. Now, the ill-timed interceptions, those are going to happen. You're going to turn the football over. Last week on this exact program, you told me and backed up your prediction earlier on in the year that you thought Pittsburgh is the best team in the NFL. They win last week against Tennessee. What about this week as they go catching 4 against Baltimore on the road?
Well, I'm not going to give away my show this weekend, but let me tell you something. I have Ike Taylor on the show on Sunday
Great
morning at
kid.
11 a.m. And Ike Taylor said something in the interview, and the pre-interview, and I got him to say it on the phone with me, that I think is stunning. So I want you guys to listen to that interview. So I'll answer from my portion, but that's somebody you need to listen to. I think it's setting up absolutely perfect for a Baltimore win. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think Pittsburgh's the better team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the situation here, everything leads to Baltimore. Baltimore's coming off of a bye week. They have their sights set on Pittsburgh the entire bye week. Harbaugh off of a bye week. The guy is an absolute genius of a coach, right? Now you have certain things that are being fixed. I think it's actually better that Ingram is not in here because I think Dobbins and Edwards are better talents, and they are probably more effective. So Harbaugh gets that opportunity. They also added a defensive player, and Pittsburgh is coming off of a grueling battle with Tennessee where they were getting pounded all day long, but they were effective against Derrick Henry, holding him for 75 yards. So you look at the weather problems that might be there this weekend. I'm already seeing some wind, weather problems in Baltimore, being at home, coming off a bye week. Look, if this was both of them coming off of a bye week on a neutral field, I'm taking Pittsburgh all day. If it's in Pittsburgh, clearly I'm taking Pittsburgh all day. But in Baltimore, weather problems, off of a bye week, off of a Tennessee banged-up team, I think this is probably a good time to grab Baltimore. But I don't like laying the 3.5. I think it's a 3-point game.
Tom Barton of Sports Gardens, Wanna-Bet Weekend Edition, each and every Sunday starting at 11 a.m. Eastern, takes you up to kickoff right here on Sports Map Radio. Tom, this is a weird situation for football fans to be in nowadays because for the last, decade and a half, we've just been programmed. Yeah, you can bet on Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. You just can't do that right now with the way that Cam Newton is playing the quarterback spot. A couple of weeks off of coming back from the coronavirus, so I'm going to give the guy a little bit of a break. But now you go and take on Buffalo on the road, getting 4. It's so dicey to even think about going with New England.
Well, I did last week. It was my first free play loss on Sunday that I have all year, okay? And I learned my lesson. Look, I said, Belichick never loses 3 in a row. Belichick never does. Look, it's a new generation.
Right?
You look at what did Belichick go out there and say this week. Oh, we'll trade everybody on the defense. We'll trade everyone. I don't want to say Belichick is tanking because he's not tanking, right? But I don't think he has the incentive to win like he used to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's certain times where you hit the button and you go, okay, look, it's not going to work this year. Let's start thinking about next year. We all have fantasy teams. We all do it, right? Right about this time, you go, look, I'm in a dynasty league. I can go get a couple of guys or really kid myself. I think Belichick's there. He won't admit it publicly, but I think he's there. And the one thing that I think that you have to look at with the Buffalo Bills is this. This is their Super Bowl. You could say all you want about, well, you know what, they played well. No. This is their Super Bowl. They are 3-29 against New England. 3-29 against New England. McDermott, he's 0-6. Allen has never beat him in 3 tries. So this is massive for their psyche. I'm not putting a lot of value into the Jet game last week. I think they were looking ahead to New England. Everything will turn for Buffalo if they beat New England. If they lose, oh boy, watch the walls come tumbling down at Orchard Park.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be horrible if they can't go on and finish that thing off. Now, what about Cleveland, Tom, and the effect that Odell Beckham Jr.'s injury is going to have on the Browns, and what kind of plays you can put on Cleveland the rest of the way out, 5-2 overall?
I don't think Odell really matters that much, to be honest with you. Look, they have good receivers. This is still a running team, and it's kind of a matter of hold on until Nick Chubb gets back and then just run the ball in cold and bad weather. And you said the effect. I thought you were going to go with the weather this week because the effect of the weather is massive. They're talking about 35 to 40 mile per hour winds could be at game time. So this is Kareem Hunt against Josh Jacobs. I mean, that's just the way it is. Kareem Hunt has looked good, but Stefanski has not run him kind of the way that I thought. Now with no Odell, Jarvis Landry, oh, by the way, is banged up. I think this is going to be run all day. On the other side, John Gruden has done a miraculous job, and Derek Carr looks really good, but I still don't think he trusts him. They have got to get Josh Jacobs running. He didn't do well last week. He had some stinker games here, but they've got to get him running. This is going to be a fun game between two teams that I think are eyeing the playoffs, and both of them could be on the outside looking in if they lose this game.
The books are really putting us in a conundrum here. How do you not take the Chiefs going up against the New York Jets? Oh, well, you throw a number out there like 19.5 or 20 at some places.
Yeah, if you guys are still in survivor pools and you didn't use the Chiefs, well, lucky you, right? I mean, there's no way
Yes.
they're losing. But since 1970, during the AFL-NFL merger, since 1970, this situation has happened where a team has been 20 or more point favorites. It has happened not a lot of times, and only 3 out of 14 times has the team covered, and 2 of them were New England when Brady was just going crazy, and one of them was with Moss. So it just doesn't happen. Now, those teams, oh, by the way, have never lost the game, so the Chiefs aren't losing this game.
Mm-hmm.
I had an interesting conversation this week, and somebody said to me, how do you not take the Chiefs? They're going to crush them. I just said, I just can't. Look, I have a weird thing that I will not take double-digit favorites in the NFL. Why? Because I look at the numbers and I look at the statistics, double-digit favorites. You'll just go broke doing it. So now this is like a double-digit favorite. I can't do it. I'm not taking the Jets, and I think you got to be crazy to take the Jets.
No kidding.
But this is not a spot to go out there and try to be creative and go take the Chiefs. You're losing 20-0 in the first quarter. Imagine there's a 3 and out. You're done. Your whole day's shot.
What about the effect that Tua Tagovailoa is going to have on the Dolphins? I don't expect them to be able to beat the Rams. I'm really high on the Rams. I don't know where you find and see the 5-2 LA team. But for the rest of the year, there was, I think, a limit on where Ryan Fitzpatrick took the Dolphins. But, man, there's going to be a lot of people that are intrigued and just itching to bet on Tua in that number 1 jersey with those teal boys down there in Miami.
Oh, that's not the case this week. 87% of the tickets are coming in on the Rams, and the line hasn't moved. Oh, it's rough. And this would be a spot as a sports handicapper where I'm drooling to take Miami. You have the Rams. Everyone's high on them. They beat down the Bears at the 5-1 team on Monday night. Now they have a short week, travel across the country, and everybody's going, the Rams are going to crush them. The Rams, it's a rookie quarterback. Everything's lined up. But why is this line where it is?
Mm-hmm.
The Rams by 7.5, 8. I mean, this should be a huge line. It's not a huge line. 87% of the tickets are coming in on the Rams, and the line hasn't moved. I got a sneaky suspicion that the Dolphins play close here. Now, I'm not a guy that only follows line movement, but when you see something get over 70, it's eye-opening. Over 80, you got to pay attention. You get to 87% and the line doesn't move, that's telling you something.
What about the Sunday night game, Cowboys and Eagles? Now, I mean, we've all watched car accidents and train wrecks. I don't expect it to be that bad, but goodness gracious, the Cowboys are bad.
Oh, Mike Harvey said they're the worst team in the league this week. And you know what? I look at the Cowboys and I go, their defense is still the problem. Everyone wants to concentrate on the quarterback now, right? Well, this kid's new.
You're exactly right.
A little bit. This is on Zeke Elliott, man. Isn't it? I mean, Zeke, you got to get this thing going. This is your team. You're the guy. I don't care if they're stacking the box. Run the ball 25 times, get your 90 to 100 yards, and keep Wentz off the field. Let's get this done. And if you're a Cowboy fan, that's how you have to think. But the problem is, Wentz could be thrown to me and you, and I think he has thrown a couple passes to me and you with the receiving core that he has. And he can still win this game because the Dallas defense is woefully bad.
I'm an absolute threat in the red zone, Tom. Don't sleep on that. No doubt about it. Tom Barton, Sports Garden, Wannabet Weekend Edition. Follow him on Twitter at Tom Barton Sports. He's got Ike Taylor on the show. What else you got coming up this weekend starting up at 11 Eastern?
Ike Taylor's on the show, and I'm going to give you a bet that I believe you can jump on still, and that's for the MVP. I think there's an underrated guy out there. He's starting to gain a little momentum, but there's still some pretty big odds. So I'm going to give you that, and I'm going to get back in the winning column. I only had one losing week so far this NFL season. I give out one play every Sunday. I've had one. It came last week. I'm not going on a losing streak, so I'm going to give you my free play there as well.
And that's an absolute lock. Tom, thanks, buddy. We'll be listening.
All right, have a good one. Thank you.
You too, man. Tom Barton, Sports Garden, Tom Barton Sports. How you follow him online. He joins us on the Progressive Guest Hotline and joins Sports Map all night, each and every Thursday following the Thursday night game that we just watched. And we saw the Atlanta Falcons beat the Carolina Panthers 25-17. Tom joins us on the Progressive Guest Hotline. Quote, buy and save on home insurance with Progressive's new home quote Explorer only at Progressive.com. Progressive is proud to honor our veterans by donating cars to move their lives forward, especially in times of need. Learn more about their Keys to Progress program and plans for 2020 at keystoprogress.com. The biggest news in sports, we'll update you again next at Sports Map All Night.
Jake Asman. LeBron James, you might be familiar with him. Maybe the second greatest.
Wrapping up here, 1-800-224-2004 if you want to join the conversation as well. This hour is presented by Rocket Mortgage. Want to see your loan options and adjust payments and closing costs online in real time? Rocket can. The biggest news in sports today, I don't know if it's actually the game that we just watched in Carolina. No, Trevor Lawrence, the Heisman frontrunner, the consensus soon-to-be number one overall pick, has tested positive for COVID-19. He will miss Saturday's game against Boston College, and there's a definite possibility he misses the next game, November 7th, as the top-ranked Tigers take on number 4 Notre Dame. We're going to talk to Ben Wargel from Wisconsin about Madison's issues as well. Hour number 3 straight ahead. It's Sports Map Radio. Welcome back to the program. It's Sports Map All Night. Hour number 3 is here on a thirsty Thursday. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hopefully you're partaking and enjoying wherever you may be listening, wherever we are broadcasting to you. Could be on the Sports Map Radio app, which you can take anytime, anywhere, any place. Download it for free right now today. Google Play Store, also the Apple Store as well. You can also find us on the desktop, streamsportsmap.com, one of our fine local affiliates across the country as well, across the Sports Map Radio Network, which is ever expanding day in and day out, continuing to broaden our horizons across the country. And I tell everybody to make sure that they are here with us on Sports Map All Night, each and every weeknight, especially Fridays when we give you the 3 plays that pay. Those are big time moments. Those are days that you have to be here, and you're just not going to want to miss Sports Map All Night. And within the next half hour, I'm going to stop in and check in with a guy that I've talked to a bunch of different times on the air. First time I've gotten a chance to bring him on here, Sports Map All Night. Ben Wargel covers everything Wisconsin, University of Wisconsin, the football program, basketball program as well. He's at the Badger Nation. On Twitter is how you find him, covers it for the Rivals Network, and he's been covering that team for the better part of the last 2 decades. And the COVID-19 outbreak at the University of Wisconsin has now forced the cancellation, and the first cancellation that the Big Ten has had to encounter since their restart of the football season, or their start of the football season here in 2020. How does that affect the goings on for a Big Ten championship game? How does that affect the schedules for other teams across the Big Ten? The University of Nebraska, who was set to play Wisconsin this weekend, was trying to schedule a game against the University of Chattanooga, FCS team. And Kevin Warren and the Big Ten commissioners and all the folks that he was with said, nah, we're not letting you do that. You're going to play a game. It's going to be a Big Ten game. We can't let you play a Big Ten opponent. So, in limbo, but how much longer could the Wisconsin Badgers be sidelined? How long could the most important player in college football be sidelined? We'll tell you next. Sports Map All Night. Just missed it.
Radio Network.
This is Sports Map All Night. Thanks for hanging out with us. My name's Bill Schmidt alongside Andrew Carlson inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios. You can join the conversation 1-800-224-2004 and talk Trevor Lawrence in just 1 second as he has tested positive for COVID-19. And Adabo Sweeney gave us the answer that we were hoping Trevor would give us last night when we discussed Trevor Lawrence on the program last night here on Sports Map Radio. But first, guys, I want to give you a glimpse into what this weekend should be for you. And I don't like to tell people how to live their lives. That's not the kind of business that I got into. That's not the style of program we do here on Sports Map Radio. However, what we do like to tell you is great opportunities for you to see world-class athletes, the tops in their professions, do battle in historic matchups. Tank Davis goes up against Leo Santa Cruz this weekend, Saturday, October 31st, in what could be absolutely the fight of the year. Head-to-head, two of the most popular fighters in the world, Gervonta Davis going up against Leo Santa Cruz for 2 titles, 2 belts, 1 night, 1 fight, winner take all. It's a very rare situation in which both championships in 2 different weight classes are on the line. Leo Santa Cruz puts his 130-pound title up against Tank Davis's 135-pound title. Each of them won their championships, respectively, in their previous fights. This is the main event, and the 3-time world champion Tank Davis, a protege of one Floyd Money Mayweather, will headline a pay-per-view for the first time, and it's absolutely, unequivocally, his biggest fight of the career of the young Tank Davis. And for Leo Santa Cruz, he's also headlining a pay-per-view for the very first time. It's going to be his biggest fight of his career. And Leo Santa Cruz has had some big fights in his career, guys. He's a 4-division world champion. Star attractions across the card, and it starts and ends right there with Tank Davis. He has proven to be one of the biggest attractions in boxing. He's filled arenas all across the country, and in his hometown of Baltimore, Atlanta last year, Santa Cruz made a name for himself in the sport as well, engaging in numerous different fight of the year contenders. He's a fan favorite amongst those below the border as well. It's going to be a fight for the ages and a night that you're not going to want to miss because there's also a stacked up undercard that you're going to be treated to as well. Mario Barrios defends his title against Houston's own hard-hitting Ryan Carl in a co-featured bout. Another former world champion is going to be on the card as well. It is going to be a fight that you're not going to want to remember. Fright night becomes fight night is what I'm saying. Halloween night. Go to Showtime Pay-Per-View. Showtime Pay-Per-View on the Showtime app on your smart TV or a connected device if that's the easier way you want to watch it. You can also go to Showtime.com and have it across all the different platforms. Or listen, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to us on terrestrial radio, and you're like, I'm not trying to watch it on no Roku or any Prime TVs. No, just contact your local cable provider or satellite provider and do it the old-fashioned way. You can still order pay-per-views from Showtime the old-fashioned way by contacting your TV or satellite provider. Showtime pay-per-view this Saturday night, guys. Winner take all. 2 titles. 1 night, 1 fight. Tank Davis against Leo Santa Cruz. You better believe I know how I'm spending my Saturday night, and it is not going to be dressing up. It is going to be dressing down and hanging out and watching fights on pay-per-view, thanks to our friends at Showtime. Andrew, are you a Halloween guy before we get into Trevor Lawrence here? No, you're going to be taking a sabbatical tomorrow, going on assignment for a Friday. Are you a Halloween guy where you're big into making sure that you find a costume, dress up, and that you're very drawn and driven for a costume? Is that something that you're interested in?
No chance.
Thank you.
I'm very much the guy that, oh crap, it's Halloween week. I haven't decided on a costume. Everything's sold out everywhere. What am I doing now?
And you end up going as a football player for the 14th straight year.
Yeah, and then I have the David Carr jersey with the bag over my head. So that's how it usually
That works.
ends up.
See, out of all the holidays there are, Halloween to me is a spectator sport, right? Like if I'm going out on a Halloween, it's not because I'm super jacked up to go and party with everybody and dress up as, God knows what. For me, it's an absolute spectator sport. You hang out, A lot of times I'll be the one dude that doesn't dress up. I've done the classic, well, I don't know if it's actually classic. I usually get roasted for it, but I have Andrew, I have a St. Patrick's Day like tuxedo t-shirt that I'll wear, and then I'll usually wear like green pants and just say, oh man, I got the holiday wrong again. And I'll just play it that way because I despise dressing up in costumes.
I agree.
Now, I've had a couple of great ideas. Just very, very poor execution. Folks on the live stream have noticed that I have some longer hair than most guys do. At one point, it came down to like my mid back, and that was a little bit aggressive. But I tried to go as the Undertaker one time, but my hair's just not dark enough to pull off the Undertaker, as well as the neck tattoo. That's one area that I'm just not real comfortable in going for a Halloween costume, as well as if I really want to go as the Undertaker, which I think is a tremendous costume if somebody's actually able to pull it off. The Undertaker is not really a costume you can do on Halloween night up here in Wisconsin, because you're lucky if it's over 25 degrees when you're going bar hopping on a Halloween night here in Wisconsin. For the most part, it's going to be tipping below freezing. And I'm not trying to have my entire chest exposed at that point in time. Right? Like, especially like, give me the undershirt and the singlet that I have to wear if I'm Taker. Some things are poking out and guts popping out. Just not a great look. But overall, Halloween, much better if you just hang out at the end of the bar, enjoy a couple of beverages, and then just watch everybody go by. People watching is an underrated sport in this country, and especially on a night like that. Now, Halloween going to be much different across the country, I can only imagine, for most people, especially on college campuses, because goodness gracious, does it go down on a college campus on Halloween. But for Trevor Lawrence, he will not be having any Fright Night fun this year. Trevor Lawrence announcing earlier today via Twitter, quote, I have tested positive for COVID-19 and my symptoms have been relatively mild while I'm following the protocol from Clemson and the ACC. The only thing that hurts is missing an opportunity to be with my teammates this weekend and play the game I love. I hate it. I can't be there, but I will be watching from isolation and pulling for our guys while I wait for the next opportunity to rejoin the team. God bless and go Tigers. Trevor Lawrence announcing earlier today that he has tested positive for COVID-19. He's the front runner for the Heisman Trophy. He has not missed a game in his 3 seasons at Clemson, and now he will miss this Saturday's contest, possibly at risk to miss the Tigers' showdown on November 7th against number 4 Notre Dame. When you see flare-ups at, Baylor, I know, Andrew, your alma mater of the University of Houston had to reschedule their opener 4 times?
4 times, and it wasn't their fault a single time. It was all positive tests on the other end.
And that we've seen so many different teams fall victim to COVID-19 and have to shut down. And we're going to talk to Ben Wargel in about 20 minutes about the Wisconsin Badgers, who their top-ranked quarterback and the highest recruited quarterback that's ever come into the program test positive for COVID-19 after his very first start. And I don't mean for this to sound crude and somewhat, shrewd maybe is the better way to put it. For college football, you knew there were going to be positive cases, right? You knew that players were going to miss games, and you knew at some point there were going to be cancellations, postponements, and we've seen all of that through the first 8 weeks of the college football season. I don't believe we've seen a player with the impact nationally, revenue-wise, information-wise, popularity-wise. I don't think we've seen a player of the Trevor Lawrence ilk test positive quite yet. And when Cam Newton tested positive in the NFL, I felt like that was kind of a wake-up call for people. Like, whoa, it's Cam Newton, man. And then quickly it was somewhat dispelled, right? And it was not taken back into account and as seriously. for the college football world, seeing Trevor Lawrence, possibly the most popular and most notable known athlete in college sports today, testing positive, it is absolutely putting a bad mark on the college football season this year. Hopefully, it is just one game, and we're all pulling for him and Trevor Lawrence and everybody else that has tested positive so far here on Sports Map All Night. And we'll keep you posted, but no Trevor Lawrence this Saturday against Boston College, as he has tested positive for COVID-19 and possibly in line to miss the game against Notre Dame. Trevor Lawrence has never lost a regular season game as the starting quarterback of Clemson. So, food for thought. His the second loss while at the university could be with Trevor Lawrence in isolation due to a COVID-19 positive test. Take a quick time out. We're going to hear from Matt Ryan, Julio Jones, after they get the first win for Raheem Morris as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Ben Wargel talking college football and the effect that COVID-19 has had on the Big Ten just 1 week in about 15 minutes. Keep it right here at Sports Map Radio. Sports Map All Night's the program. I'm Bill Schmid. Thanks for listening. Here at Sports Map All Night, Bill Schmid alongside Andrew Carlson. as we're inside the O'Reilly Auto Parts Studios, broadcasting to you each and every weeknight, starting up at 10 Eastern, 9 Central, right here on Sports Map Radio. Don't let a bad battery leave you stranded. Professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts can test your battery free of charge. And hey, if it needs to be replaced, O'Reilly Auto Parts can help you find the exact right battery for your car or truck at a guaranteed low price. Keep your car on the road by getting your battery tested for free at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts, better parts, better prices every day. 1-800-224-2004. A couple of moments for your phone calls before we get into Ben Wargle coming up here in about 13 minutes or so from right now. Thursday night football is over. It is a win for the Atlanta Falcons, just their second on the season. And it's the first win for one Raheem Morris as the interim head coach for the Atlanta Falcons. Matt Ryan had himself a rushing touchdown on the night, and he said it's finally nice to be on the winning side of one of these games.
Yeah, it just felt like it was going to be a different night, and our defense stepped up. They did a great job making plays. I'm happy for them. To come through in that type of situation, that's a confidence builder for us moving forward.
Matt Ryan tonight was 21 of 30 for 281, no scores, but an interception on his ledger. Julio Jones, though, shockingly, was his featured target, and he always should be. An average just under 20 a grab for Julio. 10 targets, 7 catches, 137 yards. What does it feel like, Matt Ryan, when you're in a groove like that with a dude like Julio Jones, who is just seemingly unstoppable?
There's no question about it. The way we started the game is, when we're at our best. Play action pass, driving the ball down the field to him. I thought Julio played really well tonight.
I bet it's fun. I like that answer. Yeah, it's fun. No doubt about it. Julio Jones, at this stage in his career, the people that believe that he might be on his way out of Atlanta, possibly being traded at 31 years old, it would just be so stunning to me to see a guy like Julio be in any other uniform but in Atlanta Falcons jersey. But it almost seems like it's going to be a foregone conclusion at some point, doesn't it, Andrew? Like at some point, he ends up going out of Atlanta and going somewhere else. The contracts would say otherwise. He's under contract with a potential out of 2023, but he wouldn't be a free agent under his current deal of 3 years, $66 million until age 35 season of 2024. It's about as locked in as you could possibly be at that position. And Julio Jones and Matt Ryan connected to the hip for the better part of the last decade, but will indeed Matt Ryan stay in Atlanta for that long? That is the question that I think we're all going to have answered for us this offseason, depending upon where the 2 and 5 Atlanta Falcons are drafting this offseason. And can this be a game, Matt Ryan, that you think your team starts turning things around?
I hope it's the start of something. I really feel like, although we're 2 and 6, I feel like we've been in some tight ones. We've played some good football. I think we can play some really tough football here in the second half of the season.
Well, that's very well and good. Now, Atlanta's still in the bottom cellar of the NFC South. They've had leads in just so many games, and you just keep pointing back to the Dallas conundrum where they blow a 20-point lead multiple times and lose. They had a 20-point lead against Chicago and lose. Got outclassed and out-physicaled against Green Bay, but the first Carolina game felt like they probably could have won. They get the Minnesota game. They should have won last week again against Detroit. So the way that they've played would speak to the fact that, there could be better things on the horizon for the Atlanta Falcons. But just listen to the schedule coming up here to close out the season for the folks in the ATL. All right. Next week, they get the Denver Broncos at home. All right. That's a winnable game. Probably should be a win. Then it's at the New Orleans Saints, hosting the Vegas Raiders, hosting the New Orleans Saints, at Los Angeles across the country for a 3:25 start, hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at Kansas City, at Tampa Bay to round out the season. That final stretch is as daunting as you could ever imagine once you get to the Thanksgiving holiday there on the 22nd. I mean, they go at New Orleans, Vegas, who I think is somewhat underrated by everybody across the country, then a host again New Orleans. You don't even know the kind of rhythm that Justin Herbert might be in once we get to the middle of December on the road at SoFi Stadium, team going across the country. Buccaneers, Chiefs, Buccaneers. And at that point, the Buccaneers could be fighting for home field advantage throughout. And the discrepancy this year in the home field advantage battle that teams are going to be going under is only one team gets a bye. Especially in the NFC, it feels like that's going to come down all the way to week 17. That would not spell good news for the Atlanta Falcons. However, they got to walk before they can run, and sprinting would be the idea if they could possibly get back into a playoff race there in Atlanta for one of the final 7 spots in the NFC. Julio Jones with the 137-yard performance tonight always seems to put up big games, according to Steve Smith Jr., against his Carolina Panthers. Take a listen to this answer from Julio Jones.
Julio, Steve Smith Sr. here, and I'm supposed to ask you all about last week. I just want to know, man, how in the hell do you always thrash us every time you wake up and play us? What is the deal? Every time.
Yeah, I don't know. I got something. I don't know, man. Today it was just a lot of zone for us, right?
I mean, is it?
Man, I do have. I mean, y'all not the only people I have a good game against. We just took advantage of opportunities today.
That's my dog right there. Touche.
Phenomenal answer.
My favorite is Michael Irvin bouncing in there, Andrew, saying that's my dog right there. You know that's something the playmaker would definitely bust out.
Oh, 100%.
If anybody is saying that back in the 90s, you know Irvin was telling everybody, hey, Green Bay, it's not just you that I ball out against. It's San Francisco, it's Philly, it's New York, it's everybody. And, there were a couple of big-time playmakers there with Michael Irvin, Steve Smith Sr., as well as Julio Jones. Steve Smith Sr., one of my favorite players ever to watch in the National Football League. It was just too much fun in his time in the league. Julio Jones, have you heard the trade rumors involving you across the NFL? What do you think of those?
Last week was my first time actually hearing it. But for me, like I said, people going to talk. People going to say whatever they want to say. It's just like somebody saying that you're a good receiver or a bad receiver. Like, I'm not going to allow somebody else saying something have an effect on the way I handle the way I handle the game or the way I handle myself. At the end of the day, like I said, I know who I am. I know what I am to this team and this organization. So for me, I come to work every day. I'm with my brothers. We go out, we grind every day. So, but that's the business side of it too. It's definitely a business side of this game. Don't get it twisted. But, I'm ready for whatever. Like, I count on myself. I want to be out there for my guys, for my team, for my organization. The way we work, we got to bond, all that, But, at the end of the day, it's business, that stuff is out of your hands.
If the Atlanta Falcons did trade Julio Jones and 31 teams didn't make a first-round offer, I don't know what would be wrong. Andrew, am I off base with that? How would every team in the NFL not be just chomping at the bit to find a way to bring that guy in? I get he's 31. I get he's had all the injury history, that, and the other thing. He's still one of the most dominant players when he steps onto a football field against anybody, any team, any organization, any place, any game. He is one of the most dominant football players on the field, if not the most feared player on the football team. 137 yards on 7 catches tonight for Julio. And don't let the kid get hot. In the month of October, 23 targets, 20 catches, 266, and 2 scores. Guy is an absolute animal. I'd love him if he was on the Green Bay Packers. Man, if he's available in a trade, I'm telling you, everybody should just be lining up. Trade deadline comes up November 3rd. That's Tuesday. Let's check in the college game. The Big Ten has some COVID-19 issues. Ben Wargel of the Badger Nation is here next on Sports Map All Night.
Hey, Farner here, CEO of Rocket Mortgage.